Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I have a very special guest with me today by the name of Stewart Rogers. Now, as usual, I don't like to introduce anyone, so I'm going to just ping pong a question straight to you, Stewart, which is the daring question of who are you? How would you answer that question?
Fantastic. Thanks, Jason. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. Very, very good of you. Yeah, I'm Stewart Rogers. I am a journalist. I'm a public speaker. I'm managing editor at Grit Daily. I have also been writing for and I MC the events for VentureBeat. Have done that for the last 5.5 years or so. I've run a bunch of software companies over the years, and I'm currently actually running 5 different startups, many of which are female focused. And I'm also an author and a musician, and I'm a nomad. I don't have a house. I bounce around the world. I move from country to country every 5 days on average.
Awesome. As a Sadhguru, one of the big Indian gurus says, nomad means no mad. It's in the word there. So I love that. So we're talking today about mental health, and I want to show my deepest gratitude and respect to you for jumping on this call with me on a relatively short notice. I saw you speak recently in London, and it really resonated with me what you were speaking about. So I'm keen to talk about like additional subjects on top of what you've already spoken there. So let's see if I can prod some questions at you that will, prod some other things. But tell us a little bit, just to set the context, like what is the importance of mental health at workplace today in your experience that you've been working with lots of companies in respect to this? So what are kind of like the top topics there, the key bullet points?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do have a problem in the tech industry in particular. All of the research that's been done by myself and by many, many other people point to the same issue, which is that tech founders and people working in startups have a much harder time than regular citizens do. And as a result, people are turning to all sorts of self-destructive behaviors, everything from substance abuse all the way through to suicide, unfortunately. In fact, the reason I've been getting up on stage all over the world and talking about mental health in the tech industry to thousands of people is because just from a personal perspective, it's affected me deeply. In 2018 alone, I lost 11 friends in the industry because they decided to take their own lives. And that's obviously a lot for any one person to have that many friends that have done that. I appreciate that I'm not a statistically significant sample, but the people I talk to all over the world, have similar stories, and it's a real problem. It's something that we have to deal with. It's something we have to talk openly about, because what is happening is we've got people that are hustling and grinding and doing 14-hour days, 7 days a week, because they feel that that's what they need to do, because peer pressure tells them that, because society tells them that. And yet, that's not the way to work. That's the fastest way to mental health issues. And the way that we work, the way that we are with each other in this industry has to change, because we're just actually making the problem worse as it stands.
So we run one of the big design thinking communities worldwide with over 5,000 people as members of that, and they're working at some of the biggest companies in the world, and including some of these emerging startups that will effectively, inevitably become some of the most impactful companies around the world. So, this live stream, I always kind of consider these conversations as things that will be referenceable going forward. So like evergreen content. So imagining that you're speaking to 5,000 design thinkers who are actually working on things that are sustainable, circular economy type stuff, what would you advise to them in regards to integrating mental health as part of their best practices in their projects?
There's so many different things that we have to consider. So lots of different coping mechanisms, lots of different scenarios. The first one, that I want to mention is when it comes to the CEO of the company or the rest of the executive team, a lot of times those people become the sounding board for other people's issues, and that isn't necessarily a healthy thing for those executive team members. They're not necessarily trained to deal with these conversations. That can actually make their mental health worse because, of course, they're taking on other people's problems. I mean, they already have taken on the fact that they've employed these people. They've taken on the payment of the roof over their heads and the food on their tables and potentially the food on their children's tables, and that's a lot of responsibility. For them to be the people that their staff then go to with mental health issues is just exacerbating the problem and making it worse. So one thing that I would like all executive teams, CEOs, COOs, etc., to consider is, why not have a therapist come into your office once every week or 2 weeks and have an open door policy and exactly the same confidentiality clause that you'd have with your own therapist. To provide that kind of service is going to help everybody in the business, but it's also going to protect the founders against having to deal with those issues themselves. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just the way that we work. The way that we work is antiquated. It's based on very old ideas of getting up at dawn and stopping work at dusk. It comes from the agricultural period. It's not really suited to 2019. And it doesn't help us, not just from a mental health perspective, but from a physical health perspective. I mean, you've seen all the gold standard studies. If you're constantly just sat there in front of a computer screen, it's bad for you. It's killing people. And physical health and mental health are very closely connected to each other. So some of the things I tell people to do are to actually just get away from the screen, like take regular breaks. And not just take regular breaks and walk around the same office. I mean, that's like taking a break in a prison. That's just that's not going to really cut it. Get out into nature. I mean, even in the middle of the biggest cities in the world, there are lots of green areas. Getting out into nature, getting out into fresh air. Even when it's raining, doesn't matter. Just take an umbrella with you. But it changes the way that your brain works. It actually changes your neurology. It inspires you. It helps you to be more creative. It actually helps you to work better and more accurately. So instead of sitting in front of the screen for hours and hours and hours, making your brain nice and muddy, and then doing work which is not inspired and not creative and has lots of mistakes in it that you're going to have to do again the next day, take a break, get out into nature. That's step number one. Another thing is do something that's going to make you sweat, have some exercise. It could be anything. It could be just walking at a slightly brisk pace. But basically just do something that's going to raise your heart rate and exercise you, make you sweat a little bit. It's really super important. Again, it doesn't just help with physical health, it helps with mental health. I always love seeing the results of brainstorming sessions when I tell people how to really brainstorm. So brainstorming right now is going to the same damn meeting room that you've been to 1,000 times before with those really tepid white walls and maybe a bit of glass. And we're expecting people to be creative in that environment. No, it's not going to happen. So try this. Try taking a little MiFi box. One of those little MiFi boxes that you can take out, create a Wi-Fi hotspot, take a picnic, take everybody in the team out into the countryside and sit on the grass and do some brainstorming there. Try that. You'd be surprised at how much better the ideas are that everybody comes up with. These may sound like really silly sort of tree huggy kind of things, but it really does work and it really does make a big difference. But I think the biggest difference of all is meditation, daily meditation. And I'm a big proponent of this. It absolutely changed my life. It took me out of the darkest time of my life. I was very fortunate in that I met somebody who became a very instant best friend and who helped me by introducing me to meditation, keeping me accountable. She suggested I download Calm, and I've now tried all of the guided meditation apps, and out of all of them, the narrative that Calm has is much, much closer to the pure mindfulness narrative that really does reprogram your brain and helps you to focus, helps you to be stress-free, helps you to, really understand the way that the world works, and allows you that space to think about the task at hand with 100% laser focus, as opposed to not doing meditation, which, usually people, their brains are mostly focused on something that's happened that they can't change, something that's going to happen that they can't control, and other people's opinions of themselves. Through daily meditation and through the right kind of daily meditation, you can get into a space where 100% of your brain energy goes into the thing that's right in front of you. It means you'll work faster, as well as more inspired and creative and more accurately.
Yeah, there's so many points there that I just love, and I fully agree with you. And I've gone through a similar sort of process where 3 years ago I found myself in a state of clinical depression and wondering why is this happening, and then having to really face myself and clean up completely and holistically to actually get back to my pure self, and then be able to give back a lot more to everything that I'm doing, and with lots less effort, and certainly focusing a lot less on things that don't really matter, which seem to be, using that Pareto's law, 80% of things seem to not matter, and 10 or 20% of things that really do matter, once you focus in on that and amplify it and make it as best as you possibly can, really can make a difference. So the friend that you saw that recommended Calm app to you that changed your life, and now you're impacting thousands of people worldwide with your story and your messaging, it's like, one person does really make a huge difference these days. So one of the things that I'm seeing is that there are lots of traditional businesses that might have made big millions in regular industries that are around food and producing products that are of disposable nature, are now having to swim upstream into sustainable spaces, and they're starting to sort of scratch their heads right around, well, hold on a second, if we're getting into sustainability and wellness type industries, how do we go about doing this, considering that a lot of the time our workplace is a mess? It's a mental mess as well as a physical mess. So what would you advice to those businesses and people who are facilitating that shift and transformation into those wellness and mindfulness businesses and sustainable businesses? How do we approach that? I'm here asking for advice as well.
Well, I mean, there's a term called dog fooding. In other words, eating your own dog food, and you can't have a company that is sustainable, eco-focused, tidy, if none of those things exist within your business. So, like, step number one, everybody has to work together to, live that. There is no way it's going to work if you're trying to build a sustainable business, but you don't do anything sustainable within your business. It's super interesting, the success that Marie Kondo has had over the last few years, and as a nomad, as somebody whose entire life is in one 40-liter backpack, the notion of only keeping things if they spark joy or if they are absolutely necessary to keep is really part of my entire life. And I think all businesses can take a leaf out of that book. There's an awful lot of wastage in businesses. There's an awful lot of untidiness. There's an awful lot of things that just don't need to exist, that don't add to the bottom line, that don't help people to move important tasks along. You notice I said the word important. Humans are wired to do things that are urgent. Please stop doing that. There's a very big difference between something that is urgent, that's just screaming at you, and something that's important, that's actually going to move your project along and add to your bottom line. So focus on the important things. But you have to have the right environment around you in order for all of that to be possible. So, clean up your act first. Make sure you're acting in a sustainable way. Make sure that you're operating with minimum effective dose of everything. Like, what is the least you need in order to be effective? Once you've got those things in place and everybody within your organization has bought into that as a shared goal, then you can take it to market. Only then, because only then are you living what you're expecting other people to live. And you'll then understand your customers' problems in a much better way. By the way, of course, another byproduct of having everything neat and tidy and sustainable, which makes you feel like you're doing something good for the world, is that, again, it's going to strengthen your mental health and the mental health of all of the people in your organization. When you don't have all of this clutter around and you don't have all of these crazy things happening all the time, it's going to make everyone feel less stressed and more capable of doing their jobs. So, this isn't just minimalism for the sake of it. Minimalism isn't just something that belongs to people who want to live in a white room with, no sofas, no chairs, and eat off of the floor. That's not what it's all about. Minimalism in processes is just as important. And since processes are the things that really help businesses to not only perform at their best, but also having documented processes allows you to scale fast, because you can just give documented processes to new employees and say, here's your job, this is what you do. If you can optimize those down and bring them down to the minimum version, the minimum effective dose, then your company is going to not only operate better, but people's heads are going to be clearer, because they're not full of 100 steps to get to something that actually could take 5.
Yeah. Cutting down and removing things that don't matter is like as important as adding the things that do matter. Probably like even more, I find more and more. It's like the great designers, like designers who've learned to do design as their mastery, they know that design is about removing as opposed to adding in. And it's taken me literally a decade to learn that. Yeah.
And authors too, by the way. I mean, as a journalist, as a writer, I have to tell you that I spend as much time taking words out of things that I've written as I do putting them in the first place, because making something more readable means it's more consumable, and writers want their words to be read. Like, we don't sit in front of computers for hours on end writing stuff so that it can just be thrown into a void. We want you to read it. So taking words out, making it as succinct as possible, using clear language, all of that actually aids readability, which means more people are going to consume those words.
Exactly. I actually came to UK as a refugee from Bosnia in '95, so I had to learn English from the ground up. But I consider myself actually only starting to learn English about 4 or 5 years ago, when I discovered this tool called Hemingway app, or Hemingway editor. And that just kind of completely changed my mind around, oh my God, I've been using all these like long sentences, too many words that describing things, and like just basically getting me away from the essence and substance. And that actually rewired the way I was thinking, because I realized words do create worlds, and we often just kind of pollute our language in our writing with unnecessary stuff that then just confuses things, especially in this day and age where with Snapchat and all these kind of Insta things, people just don't have that attention span anymore.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot during the content marathon. So we have a thing called Content Marathon. It's a 7-day writing course, and I'm the host of that particular course. And we go through the rules of creating explosive, engaging writing, and a lot of the things you've discussed and I've just discussed in terms of not just making things engaging and exciting, but also paring everything down, editing it down, making it consumable, making sure that it's readable. All of those things are all in there on the content marathon lessons, and they're there not just to make great writing. Great writing can take any form. It doesn't have to be a story. It could be a sales email. It could be a documented process for your business. It could be your website. It could be the text that you use in a tweet or on an Instagram post. All of these things are improved through clarity. So learning how to create something engaging and then learning how to pare it down, which doesn't just apply to writing, it applies to video. So you could be writing a screenplay, for example, and one for doing a video to tell everybody about your product or service. All of this clarity not only makes everything easier for people to consume, it not only drives your story home as hard and fast as possible, but it keeps people's mood high. Because when you're faced with complexity, that quite often is paired with anxiety. And so again, you're actually helping everybody with their mood and with their mental health situation.
Awesome. And we actually recently came up with a trademark, Super Simple Stories, and that's actually usable by people at supersimple.world website, which is just about using 3 words to describe things. So instead of those silly kind of agile stories that tend to read, as a user, I want to send an email so that I can communicate with another person. In Super Simple Stories terms, it's user sends email. That's enough to,
exactly.
It's like we get it, right? It's not like we're inventing something brand new here. And
there's an anecdote that somebody went up to Steve Jobs at Apple and said, I think our mission statement should be simplify, simplify, simplify. And Steve Jobs simply replied, why isn't it just simplify?
Exactly. All right. I think we have time for just one quick more question that's sort of inspired through this conversation. And I'm paraphrasing, I think it was Peter Drucker who said something like, and I know your background is also in psychology. So Peter Drucker said something like, the management's role or the role of the leadership of the company is to manage the psychology of the employees within the company. Comments, please.
Yeah, first of all, I completely agree with that statement. I see that as an important part, especially of the CEO's role. CEO's role is to be a people manager. And all the stuff that CEOs do behind the scenes when it comes to things like fundraising and partnerships and deals, that's all behind the scenes. Like that doesn't necessarily need to be explained to everybody. I believe in transparency within businesses because I believe that's a great way to get buy-in from all of your staff. But they don't need to know every minutiae detail of those deals. They do need to know when those things are happening. However, most of the CEO's job is in people management. It's in identifying the skills within your business and then fostering those skills and improving those skills. It's in providing the right kind of culture within your workplace to ensure that everybody is going in the right direction and everyone is going towards the shared goal in the right way. So psychology does play an important part in that. And it's quite a common thing. You go around Silicon Valley and elsewhere and you look through the offices and some people's idea of a culture is to stick a ping pong table in the office. I'm sorry, but that's not going to cut it. You've got to provide much better facilities than that. So going back full circle to where we started, have a therapist come in on a regular basis, take people out into the countryside or change the environment, work from different spaces, have clarity in everything, minimize everything, get down to the minimum effective dose, give people the opportunity to play and then work and then play and then work and then play and then work, because even though they may get 4 or 5 hours work done in a day, rather than 8 or 9 hours work done in a day, I guarantee you that work will be inspired, creative, and more accurate. It won't need to be redone again. And because they'll be able to laser focus on it, it will be faster. And, they will get the job done. That's like 4 or 5 hours of really high quality work instead of 4 hours of high quality work followed by 4 or 5 hours of really muddy, horrible, inaccurate, uninspired work, which is what our standard work days provide us with right now. So, let's all be open to just letting people work in different ways and to let people take significant breaks, not just 10 minutes to walk to the coffee machine and back again. It's not healthy physically or mentally. If we can all, get on board with this new way of working, and given it's 2019, we do need a new way of working because we're not out there picking crops anymore. Then, we're actually going to improve everything for everybody. So, that's what I would say as the sort of footnote to this conversation. Those things all come together, and then from an individual basis, make sure you throw in exercise, make sure you throw in daily meditation. It really does make a huge difference. And if you need something to guide you in order to learn how to meditate, I can't recommend Calm enough. It's a wonderful app. But yeah, go do those things. It will not only make you stress free, help with your mental health. It will make you better at your job. And there's other byproducts of daily meditation as well. It'll actually make you healthier. It reduces your overproduction of adrenaline and cortisol because of removal of stress. And when you overproduce cortisol, you actually erode your immune system. Whereas if you can stay stress-free, your body will react to illness in a much, much more effective way, and actually it will rebuild your immune system. As again, sample of one, I realize, but there's been a lot of gold standard studies done on this. But from my own personal experience, since daily meditation came into my life, I've been ill for 6 whole days in the last 4 years, which is extraordinary. Because like most people who work within a startup or most founders, I used to get ill all the time, and I'd work through it, and then I'd get really ill.
I found the same exact process to be the case. Like, since I cleaned up mentally, I've found that I am no longer suffering from those kind of minor illnesses like colds and flus. And if they come my way, they're very, very temporal. And I clean them up physically quite quickly. Even if it means like taking some sort of like let's say, fasting. Like, I might fast for a day or two, and then that helps. Right. Stewart,
and actually, just as a quick extra on that, even headaches. I have not had a single headache in 4 years. Now, if you met me before, you would find that remarkable. I used to get them almost every day, and sometimes they would last all day. Sometimes they'd last 3 days, just like one long constant headache. Haven't had one in 4 years, and that's down to daily meditation.
And I'm the opposite of that. I almost never get headaches, and if I do get a headache, I know exact reason why that headache has been caused, and it's always been a mental reason. It's something mental that's induced it. And I then know, because I'm much more cognizant of why it's happened, I know it's like, oh, this mental reason has caused it, and I can unwind it back to where I was. And as soon as I unwind it, I find that I have no headache anymore. It's very interesting how that it's very directly correlatable in some of those situations. Stewart, I'm so thankful and respectful of your time. One final sort of anything that you want to promote or direct people towards. We're linking to your website in the description. Is there anything else you would like us to link to, or call people to?
Yeah, I mean, my portfolio site is stewartrogers.me, and you'll find my full mental health in the tech industry speech there. If you would like me to bring that to your event at any point, please engage with me. The profits from any speaking fees for that speech are going into a foundation that I'm building that is going to support organizations that really help people at the sharp end. And also, we're going to build something that is going to help people from next year onwards. Really help people, really help them with coping mechanisms, and do it in a smart and respectful way. And we talked about Content Marathon. If you want to improve upon your writing, create explosive, engaging content, but also learn how to do that at paring down exercise, that's available at contentmarathon.com. And season 2 starts any day now, actually. So, rush and jump in and grab hold of that. we'll, I'm sure, do season 3 once that's done. But yeah, go check out contentmarathon.com as well.
Awesome. We'll link to that as well. Thank you so much, Stewart, and wholeness and balance to you, and all the best. Let's keep in touch. Maybe do another chat, in a few months' time to see how you're getting on as well, and what news you've got for us again.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jason, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
All the best. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Cheers.